Despite all of that, 8 years later, I managed to get a bachelor's and master's degree in computer science, even finishing top of my class with only A's in my master's studies. I pretty much exclusively attribute these exceptional grades to the study framework that I'm about to tell you. The truth is, I wasn't always a good test taker. When I was about 17, so roughly at the end of my high school years, my grades got worse and worse. A's were far in between except for a few subjects like sports. I really began to think that I just suck at tests and there was nothing that I could really do about it. I think this added to the problem, made me get really anxious before any kind of test or exam, and I even had a phase where I had to take medication to calm me down before taking a test. In the second to last year of high school, I decided to drop out. But not even a year after leaving high school, something clicked in me. After reflecting on what had gone wrong, I realized 3 things about what I studied, how I studied, and how to fix it. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is John and I'm a self-employed software engineer with a bachelor's and master's degree in computer science. And in this video, I want to share with you the study framework that has helped me finish top of my class in my master's studies. I will go into the 3 main reasons why I sucked at tests and how I fixed it. I will also provide simple techniques you can use right away to improve your own test results. Let's jump right into it. Okay, the first reason that I sucked at exams was that I wasn't studying the right stuff. Learning the right stuff seems incredibly obvious, but hear me out. For the longest time, I had a really idealistic view on school and learning for tests in general. I always thought school is there to teach us things we need. Plus, we would acquire knowledge that we would apply later on in life. I thought we should comprehend and understand everything that we've been taught, because otherwise, why are we even learning it, right? And in an ideal world, that would be the case. And I think it is the intention of schools to teach you what you need. But in reality, you learn a lot of things that you don't actually need because you do specialize differently. For example, you don't need the periodic table if you become a musician. Also, most of the time, what is being tested is not comprehension of the subject. For most subjects, the tests are not for comprehension, but for reproduction only. Reproduction being learning something by heart and regurgitating it in a test setting. For some subjects, like history, this is very obvious. There isn't much to comprehend, so you learn a few dates of major events and the impact they had. You then simply reproduce those without any transfer knowledge. But for other subjects like physics or chemistry or languages, it is a lot less obvious. The thing is, even though you would think you need a lot of transfer knowledge for these subjects, most of the time in a test, you'd still only have to reproduce some sort of equation or how to introduce yourself or a word list. And of course, there are some exceptions to this. There are subjects where you do have to apply a little bit of transfer knowledge, where you do have to comprehend the subject. But in my experience, most of the subjects test reproduction only. Now, if you want to learn everything for total comprehension, that's fine. But the main issue is that it takes a huge amount of time. This becomes even worse when you study for multiple subjects at the same time. So what can you actually do to fix it? Here's what I've done. The absolute best way to make sure you're learning the right things is by going through practice tests of that specific teacher or professor from that specific grade. And this works because the contents of any subject usually don't change that much throughout the years, especially in high school, but also in university. And another reason why this works is because teachers and professors usually only do variations on the tests that they've already done to reduce their own workload. And this is pretty much true for any test you're taking, be it the theory of your driver's license test, subjects in school, or courses in university. For some tests, like the driver's license test or the JLPT, the Japanese language proficiency test, it's even normal to go through practice tests before you're taking the actual test. By going through practice tests rather than trying to comprehend all of the subject matter, you're making sure you're learning the right stuff while at the same time keeping the workload at a minimum. So that's number 1. If you're optimizing for grades, try to practice the questions of the previous iterations for reproduction rather than trying to fully comprehend all of the subject's material. If the test questions are testing the right stuff, then you will gain comprehension naturally. But if they're not testing the right stuff, you'll still be doing well at the test. 2. I sucked at tests because I was lacking prep time. And with this I mean, 1, I wasn't studying early enough in the school year or in the semester. And 2, I wasn't studying enough hours. Both of these points make up the quantity of time you're preparing for your test. And I do want to add, you can stuff your head with all of the test questions very close to the test, committing them almost exclusively to short-term memory. This can work, but the biggest problem for me was running out of time and just not getting all of the questions into my head quick enough. In my experience, starting earlier in the school year or semester is better because you can space out your learning. And on top of that, you get a better feel for how much you actually still have to learn. You're already aware of the questions, so you know, okay, I still have to learn this, and this. I'm currently here. I might not make it in time. Besides, plenty of studies support the claim that spaced learning or spaced repetition actually enhances long-term retention. In these studies, the authors generally compare massed learning or cramming with spaced repetition or spaced learning. Also, you do actually want long-term retention for subjects that build on top of each other, like chemistry or physics. But by far the biggest benefit to starting early is that you can accumulate more hours learning the material. And I know, this isn't really a hack or anything like that, but for me it has been much easier to accumulate the hours throughout the term rather than trying to cram in 60 hours towards the end of it. And then also having to cram for another subject, and then it adds up so quickly that you just cannot do it all. In my case, this also did wonders to reduce the anxiety before an exam, but also reduce the stress during exam time overall. And lastly for this point, my favorite tool for spaced repetition are flashcards. When I was in university, I actually used the physical ones, so I wrote myself little cards and had to manage the spacing myself, but I've since migrated to Anki. Anki is just a smart flashcard app that manages when to show you the cards and essentially shows them to you in the most efficient manner. Anki makes the whole learning process a lot easier because it shows you the cards at the right times for your chosen retention. It's completely free for Mac and PC, so I can highly recommend you checking it out. And the third and last reason I sucked at exams was my lack of focus during studying. Once you know what to learn and you're putting in the hours, you should look at the quality of your learning. For example, let's say you sit down to study for 2 hours and get interrupted 3 times by your friend sending you an Instagram reel. Because of the repeated context switching, your brain constantly needs to adjust and needs time to get back into it. So even if you have been sitting there for 2 hours, you haven't actually been studying for 2 hours. And by the way, this is another reason why cramming hasn't really been working for me. For me, it's much harder to focus 8 hours in one go rather than 2 hours 4 times. At the end of the day, study quality is just as important as the quantity you put in. Because if you put in 3 hours, but you haven't actually been studying 3 hours, you're just wasting your time. One fairly obvious way to improve your focus is to curate your environment. And this sounds way more complicated than it actually is. It just means put stuff that distracts you in a different place when you're studying. That's it. Remove distractions like your phone, or study in places that are quiet like the library. Besides removing distractions, I also did 2 other things to improve my focus. 1, decide what to study and for how long to study the day before. What ended up working for me was picking 1 to 3 high priority items to study for the next day and then set a time frame in which I wanted to study them. Deciding the day before helped me to mentally prepare for it. And 2, the Pomodoro technique. When you're ready to study, set a timer for 25 minutes for full focus. Do nothing else. No distractions, nothing. And then take a 5-minute break. I actually adjusted this to 45 minutes of studying, no distractions, no nothing, no reels, nothing. And then took a 5 to 10 minute break. There are many other things to improve your focus outside of that. Probably the most impactful being getting enough sleep and doing a few hours of exercise per week. But if you make sure that you study the right stuff, as in practice the questions for the test, put in the amount of time that you know you need to put in, and keep up the focus while you're actually studying, I guarantee you will get exceptional grades. Like and subscribe if you found this helpful. Peace.